Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. The chair may ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. Individuals will be allotted 5 minutes to speak or 10 minutes for a group as per our procedure bylaw. If the meeting is recessed, callers will be put on hold until the meeting reconvenes, with the exception at noon where callers will be asked to call back in. This helps with call quality. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. We also ask all attendees to please mute their devices to reduce disruptions to the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. And because we have a councillor participating remotely this morning, we'll conduct a roll call. Councillor Laprise.
Present.
Councillor Bigger.
Present.
Councillor Eichert.
Present.
Reeve-Link is here. Councillor Kester. Councillor Larison.
Present.
And due to members participating electronically today, we will modify our voting procedure. As per Section 114.4 of the procedure bylaw, a roll call vote will be used. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. Administration is proposing two additions to the agenda today. The first agenda is an in-camera item, Lakes of Muirfield Purchase and Sales Agreement Update. And we're proposing to put that under agenda item 8. And then the second item is ratepayer correspondence under section 7.10. It's from Mr. Ethan Wilson, and it's regarding correspondence received from the restricted bridge report. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Henderson. Any other additions or changes? If there's no other additions or changes, a motion to approve the agenda is amended. Councillor Larison.
Also move.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Councillor, sorry, I said Councillor Bigger, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I meant
Sorry.
Councillor Laprise. So Councillor Laprise, Councillor Bigger,
I'm-
In favor.
Councillor Eichert,
In favor.
Reeve-Link. In favor. Sorry. It's summer holidays. I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. Councillor Kester
In favor.
and Councillor Larison.
In favor.
And that motion is carried and we're off to a great start. Are there any notices of motion? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 3.1, bylaw 2025-14. Looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. I'll call the question. Councillor Laprise.
In favor.
We can just go around. I don't have to say everyone's name.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. I'll call the public hearing to order. Good morning, everyone. As per section 191 of our procedure bylaw, the public hearing will be conducted in the following order. First, we'll have the staff report. Then we'll have a presentation by the applicant if they choose. Then we'll have a presentation by the public in support of the proposal. Then we'll have presentation by the public in opposition of the proposal. Then there will be an opportunity for a rebuttal presentation by the applicant, limited only to the comments read or heard in opposition to the proposal. Then there will be an opportunity for final questions of administration. And then we will close the public hearing. The applicant will have a maximum of 20 minutes to speak, and individuals supporting or opposing the proposal will have up to 5 minutes to speak, and any groups or individuals will have up to 10 minutes to speak. The applicant will then have a maximum of 10 minutes to present their rebuttal. If there are any questions referring to this process, please refer to the procedure bylaw. And can administration please verify that notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Good morning, Reeve-Link. Yes, the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the Act.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions that are not in the public package?
There are no additional submissions this morning.
Thank you. And we just ask that anybody who is speaking, please state your name and address for the record. Please proceed.
Good morning, Council. Taylor Felt with administration here to present bylaw 2025-14 for Council's consideration. This application proposes to redesignate Lot 1, Plan 9111292 within the southeast quarter of 312226 west of the 4th Meridian from Country Residential District to Agricultural General District in order to facilitate the consolidation of Lot 1 into the adjacent agricultural lands, which I've noted as Lot 2 throughout the report. Referring to page 6 of Council's agenda package, the lands are located 10.5 kilometers northwest of the hamlet of Carsland, just over half a kilometer north of the intersection of Highway 22X and Range Road 265 on the west side of Range Road 265. Lot 1 is currently undeveloped and used for agricultural purposes, and as such, there's no servicing infrastructure in place. Lot 2 and the land surrounding the site are predominantly used for agricultural purposes as well. The applicants intend to continue using the consolidated lands for agricultural purposes in the future. Lot 1 is accessed via an existing approach to Range Road 265 to the east, and Lot 2 is also accessed by 2 existing approaches to Range Road 265 to the east. This application is not facilitating the creation of a new parcel. Rather, the intent, as I mentioned, is to consolidate lots 1 and 2, which I have up on the screen here, therefore increasing the agricultural potential on the corridor. The proposal aligns with the agricultural objectives and policies of the Municipal Development Plan, which aim to maximize contiguous agricultural lands. The application was circulated to adjacent landowners within 1 mile radius of the site and other interested parties. Comments received can be found starting on page 12 of the agenda package. As I mentioned earlier, there are no additional comments received from adjacent landowners. And with that, administration is recommending that council grant all 3 readings of bylaw 2024-14 today. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the administration's presentation? Hearing none, would the applicant like to present? Are there any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? And I'm going to ask 3 times for anybody in support or in opposition as per our procedure bylaw. It's going to seem very repetitive, but it's part of our process just to ensure that no comments are missed. Is there anybody from the public who would like to present in support of the proposal? I'll call a 3rd and final time. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak in opposition of the proposal? I'll call a 2nd time. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? I'll call a 3rd and final time. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? Not hearing anybody. Does any councillor have any final questions for administration? Looking for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Lawerson.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Thanks, everybody. That was really smooth. Council's wishes regarding first reading.
I move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-14, this being the bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate lot 1, plan 9111292 within southeast 312226 west of the 4th from Country Residential District to Agricultural General District as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Council's wishes for second reading.
I'll move second reading of bylaw 2025-14.
Thank you, Councillor Larson. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried.
I'll move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-14.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading.
Move that council move third reading of bylaw 2025-14.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.2, bylaw 2025-15. Good morning. And can administration verify that notice of this public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Councillor Larson?
I'll move we open the public hearing.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. We can just go, we'll just ask two questions and then we'll vote on that. Are there any written submissions that were not part of the public package for this public hearing?
No.
Perfect. Now we'll vote on Councillor Larson's motion. I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Council. Jessica Russell with Planning and Development Services, presenting bylaw 2025-15, which proposes to redesignate a plus or minus 2.02 hectare portion of land from the Agriculture General District, AG, to the Natural Resource Extraction District, NRE. The lands are located 1.8 kilometers southeast of the town of Drumheller, town of Drumheller municipal boundary, 800 meters east of the intersection of Highway 56 and Township Road 280. The application proposes to redesignate a portion of Northeast 332719 west of the 4th Meridian containing plus or minus 2.02 hectares from the AG to the NRE district. The parcel is undeveloped and used for agricultural purposes. The intent of the application is to redesignate a portion of the subject lands to allow for a temporary development of a gravel extraction operation. The application proposes the development of a gravel pit operation to excavate clay material for a berming project in the Drumheller Valley. The operation proposes to extract 50,000 tons of clay material from a hill located on the northeast portion of the subject lands. The expected duration of the operation is 3 to 6 months, with full reclamation of the site estimated for spring of 2026. Agricultural operations will resume once the gravel pit operation concludes. Access to the development area is proposed by a temporary approach from Township Road 280 to the north. The haul route uses Township Road 280 to access Highway 56 to the west of the subject lands. An approach inspection may be required at the development permit stage. The estimated trip generation for the hauling trucks is 30 trips per day to and from the site. The proposed development is temporary, therefore power, electricity, and water and wastewater servicing for the site are not proposed. Temporary washroom facilities for site operators are proposed with regular maintenance and servicing. The proposal estimates 10 to 20 people employed by the operation. The hours of operation for the site are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday to Saturday for approximately 2 to 4 months. Gravel pit operations are subject to the Environment Protection and Enhancement Act, or EPEA, regulated by the Ministry of Environment and Protected Areas. The proposed operation is a Class 2 gravel pit, which does not require registration with the ministry. The code of practice for pits under the EPEA does not apply to Class 2 pits. Land conservation and pit reclamation is required as regulated under the EPEA and adherence with the Water Act. The proposed redesignation accommodates a natural resource use for a gravel pit operation. The proposal was reviewed against the natural resource use policies in the MDP, which consider environmental factors, location, and adjacent land uses, and found to be consistent with the objectives and policies within Section 3.8 of the MDP regarding natural resource extraction. The proposed development is consistent with the site regulations in the NRE district, which is an appropriate district for the intended use of the lands. The proposal was evaluated against Section 9.7C to HH of the Land Use Bylaw regarding special requirements for land uses within the NRE district. The application includes a community consultation package containing information included in a letter sent to landowners within 1 mile of the subject lands. Responses from landowners were included, which identified concerns with the operation utilizing Range Road 193. In addition, the Rosedale Community Information Package dated November 15th, 2023 was submitted regarding information provided for the associated berming project. Regarding access, the parcel is located 800 meters east of the intersection of Highway 56 and Township Road 280. The development area is accessed by a proposed approach from Township Road 280 to the north. The application includes a traffic impact assessment, concluding that the existing intersection and conditions are acceptable for the proposed borough haul operations without any concerning impact. During the circulation period, Alberta Transportation noted that the proposal is outside the permit area of a provincial highway and a highway roadside development application. However, operations are subject to the Highway Traffic Act and regulations, and a traffic accommodation strategy for the proposed highway haul route, should be submitted for review and acceptance. One new gravel approach is required to provide access to the site, and a road use agreement and an access and work agreement are required to facilitate hauling material off the site with an identified haul route. The approach and note agreements may be addressed at the development permit stage. The application includes a conservation operation reclamation plan containing information including site information, consistency with the Historical Resources Act, environmental and wildlife considerations, weed and waste management, and a reclamation plan. Environmental considerations are included in the conservation operation reclamation plan, supplemented by a submitted wildlife assessment conducting a general area search to identify potential areas with wildlife interaction. Upon review of the technical documents, the county's third-party engineers confirmed that the Conservation Operation Reclamation Plan contains information regarding the site soil profile, wildlife assessment, environmental factors, and final reclamation plan. Regarding wetlands, the county's third-party engineers noted that although there are 2 wetlands in the area, the proposed borough pit and access roads are not expected to cause any negative impacts to them. Regarding wildlife considerations, the county's third-party engineers noted that the recommendations outlined in the wildlife assessment should be adhered to by the applicant. The assessment did not contain any applicable site-specific mitigation measures recommended this time. Reclamation information is included in the Conservation Operation Reclamation Plan. Proposed reclamation of the site is to a similar condition prior to commencement of the gravel pit operation. The operation is expected to remove approximately 50,000 tons of borough material from the site from the top of a hill located on the northeast portion of the subject lands. The applicant proposed to reclaim the pit, returning the area into agricultural land for cultivation. Lastly, the application includes a series of site plans. Upon review of these plans, the county's third-party engineers note that a proposed berm is located on top of the underground gas line near the borough pit, recommending the provision of correspondence from the utility owner that they agree with the berm location. Further, it was noted that the applicant provided drawings identifying a proposed berm averaging 8 meters in height with a 1-by-1 slope. The county's third-party engineers recommend the provision of approval from a geotechnical engineer for the proposed berm and confirmation of the construction material for the berm, and the submission of an erosion sediment control plan meeting county standards. The NRE district allows for natural resource extraction and processing operations as a discretionary use. Any change in the intensity of the natural resource extraction operation requires the application and approval of a separate development permit. Notice of the public hearing was set in accordance with the MGA. No submissions were received. Administration recommends approval as per the motions provided. And please note that in the report, it notes that is Division 2. However, this is in Division 7. However, the bylaw is correct. This concludes the presentation of bylaw 2025-15, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for administration? Councillor Larson.
Just to confirm what you went through, in the AER one, it said potential for sour gas pipelines, but as I'm looking at the map that they provided, I don't see anything. Have we confirmed that?
Yes, that map, I guess, confirms that there are.
Okay, good enough. That was my only question. Thanks.
Any other questions for administration?
You hear me?
Yeah, please proceed, Councillor Kester.
Not so much a question. I just have some comments. So maybe not the time to do the comments, but just.
Yeah, let's reserve comments for once we close the public hearing and we have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So we'll just focus on if there's any questions regarding the presentation from administration at this point. But we'll circle back for discussion after. Would the applicant like to present? Are there any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? I'll call a second time. Are there any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? I'll call a third and final time. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak in support of the proposal? Are there any presentations by the public in opposition to the proposal? I'll call a second time. Are there any presentations by the public in opposition to the proposal? I'll call a third time. Are there any presentations by the public in opposition to the proposal? Hearing none, are there any final questions of administration? Looking for a council motion to close the public hearing.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. I'll call the question.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Looking for a motion regarding first reading, Councillor Larson.
Just a minute. Go. I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-15. This being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate plus or minus 2 hectares within northeast 332719 west of the 4th from agriculture general to natural resource extraction processing district as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Larson. Now we'll open for discussion or debate.
I think Councillor Custer had a question or a comment.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, I find this, I don't know what the exact word of it is, red tape for sure. This burrow pit was used for private use. It wouldn't even be here. And it's not even for gravel. There's no gravel in the hole, but we have nothing for play, so we call it a gravel pit. And it's temporary. He's going to close it up next year. This is a huge expense for a private dealing, and I find that objectionable personally. And one other thought I come, sometimes the county, I've seen some pretty big burrow pits from the county for building roads. I can't ever remember going through this process for a burrow pit in the county. I think I don't know what the best thing to do. I know it's in our land use bylaw, but I think it needs to be changed. This is
Thank you, Councillor Kester.
poor guy. Yeah.
So I think the best approach is we need to review this application under our current regulatory framework. If there are council wishes to review that, then a motion could be brought forward or a notice of motion or work with administration to have an addition to a future agenda to review our current regulatory framework and propose potential changes to explore. But we'll need to review this current application under our current statutory documents.
Can I just remind council that I actually did raise this as a motion. And I think I'm just looking on the tracker to find it, but there is a motion to review this and for administration to bring it back to a future meeting or a committee of the whole. So it is being addressed, I believe, by administration. I agree that I think that we can try to streamline our processes, but it is being addressed, I think.
Thank you for that reminder, Councillor Priest. Is there questions or discussion regarding the current application? Hearing none, I will call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Council's wishes regarding second reading.
I'll move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2025-15.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried.
Move that council grant permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-15.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried unanimously.
And I'll move that council moves third reading of bylaw 2025-15.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any final questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.3, bylaw 2025-19.
Morning, Council. Stephen Kuntz on behalf of administration today. Presenting bylaw 2025-19, which are amendments to the Subdivision Development Appeal Board bylaw, or the SDAB bylaw. So you may recall this item from the July 8th council meeting. Administration proposed a number of amendments to the SDAB bylaw, largely intended to revise the board's membership criteria and overall board composition. Additional revisions included adding telecommunications provisions to allow online meetings, updating signing authority, allowing or adding membership flexibility, and adding a provision to have alternate members in the event that a full-time member can't make it and they don't have quorum. In addition to those changes, on July 8th, council moved a number of amendments as well. These included deleting reference to the code of conduct and removing redundant language with respect to the reappointment of members of the board. Those changes, as well as the ones originally proposed by administration, are available in the report in the red line and final version. And that concludes our presentation. We are recommending, obviously, that council approve second and third reading of bylaw 2025-19 as amended.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council moves second reading of Subdivision and Development Appeal Board bylaw 2025-19 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Any questions or discussion?
I'm going to take over Councillor Rapiste on page 48, number 4. D, it should be residents. I'm not sure what that word is, but it should be residents of Wheatland County. So you're
I
welcome.
think it's wrong in the red line, but it's right in the final version.
I noticed that as well, but in the final version, you're right, it is corrected.
I can't catch you. I apologize.
You've made Councillor Laprise very proud.
I thought you weren't doing your job and I was going to show you up and I got shown up.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. In the final version of the bylaw, the spelling is correct. Any other questions or discussion? I feel like we stole your thunder. I'm sorry. I'll call the question.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Council's wishes for third and final reading.
I move that council moves third and final reading of bylaw 2025-19 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.4.
Morning, Council. Joel here from administration to walk through some of the changes for the master schedule and fees bylaw. This is found on page 60 of the agenda package. Page 65 has a summary of all the proposed changes to the bylaw. As per usual, what we've done is in the red font with strikeout is the changes or deletions, and the green highlighted fonts are the additions. And then you'll note the changes requested on the right-hand column are just some high-level notes about the changes, and as well as the body of the report itself has some narrative information on the changes. The changes are grouped in sections based on the proposals from the various departments. As you'll note, most of the changes in this round are from the safety code application section. Many of them are just minor dollar values or administrative adjustments. And yeah, so all of the changes are proposed here, as well as the current existing bylaw starting on page 67. Administration is available for any questions. That concludes my report.
Any questions regarding the bylaw updates? Council's wishes, or if you have a question.
Just for clarity for public, on page 66, 65 and 66. So for the different safety code applications, you've proposed changes for the building code, gas code, and then you've got private sewage disposal 3 times. I assume that's for electrical, plumbing, gas, electrical, plumbing, and then private sewage.
Yes, so through the chair, you're correct. Sorry. I believe it's just the heading sections that we just didn't clarify in that.
That's what the intention is that.
That is correct.
Good clarification. Thank you. So would we want to amend those for clarity? Because it's a bylaw, perhaps we should just take like a 5-minute recess and we can just add in the proper headings just so council can see the bylaw that we'll be voting on. So we will recess for 5 minutes. Let's reconvene at 9:40. Thank you. The meeting back to order. I believe administration has some proposed changes to the bylaw.
Morning, Joel again here. Apologize for the oversight and good catch on that one. Yes, so I've done the adjustments into what you see on the screen here. Let's go to page 2. So that each gas, electrical, plumbing, and private sewage disposal systems are correctly displayed as requested. Again, the administration are available for any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. So all of council has an opportunity to see the proposed amendments to the bylaw. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approve first reading of the master schedule of fees bylaw 2025-23.
And looking to administration, I think the motion would be as amended.
Yes, that's correct.
as amended. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
Reading of bylaw 2025-23.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Council's wishes regarding permission for third reading. Councillor Larson,
I'll move that council grant permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2025-23.
thank you, Councillor Larson. Any questions? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried unanimously. Council's wishes for third reading.
I'll move the council approve third and final reading of bylaw 2025-23.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to administration. Councillor Eichert on the break was just saying like how complex the master schedule of fees and just that we've really addressed a lot of potential development issues as well through the fee structure. So thank you for your diligence and attention to detail with that. We appreciate it. The same could be said for the SDAB bylaw as well. I think we really streamlined that also. So thank you for administration's work on both of those. And we will move to agenda item 3.5, bylaw 2025-26, municipal public utilities bylaw.
Good morning, Council. Jose here from administration to present the municipal public utilities bylaw. So administration's completed a detailed review and updated the county's utility bylaw, last adopted in 2021. This bylaw updates include the raw water utilities that we're going to be supplying in Goldfinch. And it introduces the raw water use agreement, which is detailed technical requirements for industrial users. The bylaw also introduces clearer structure by establishing utility frameworks through schedules B and D by separating potable water from raw water and also general water. The bylaw also introduces a new Schedule E, which outlines specified penalties for utility-related infractions. There's a summary found on the second page of all of the changes, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the bylaw?
I have a couple questions, actually, just for my own understanding and the right process, I guess. On page 105, point number 6 at the top there, I'm just curious if this is like a standard clause and we accept no liability for any damage or any losses, I guess. I'm just curious if that's a standard process. I just feel like even if we cause damage, we're not liable for it kind of thing. I just want to make sure that residents are also protected.
So this is something that's, a lot of these are taken on a case by case basis as well. Written in here is also the ability for the CAO to step in and make adjustments as required. That being said, the bylaw has also been vetted by county lawyers, so.
So there would be the ability, if we were, I don't know, something happened and I don't know. I just want to, I guess, make sure residents would be protected. Our CAO could decide that we're at fault and we should pay damages or whatever.
Through the chair, that's correct.
And just a point to the chair, that is a fairly standard limitations of liabilities clause. So sometimes it's to prevent claims against unavoidable service interruptions. That's a good one. And then just avoid liability for quality of issues outside of our control as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I understand that. I mean, if it's outside of our control, that's kind of I understand that. And then there's just, I'm curious, on page 107, we talk about abandoning a service. And then on page 112, a customer requests shut off. Is there, what's the difference between abandoning a service? What does abandoning a service mean?
Through the chair. So abandoning is when the tenant leaves and simply abandons the lot, and it's no one.
Be the same as a shut off, really.
That's right. One is a requested shut off. The other one is simply just leaving.
Oh, they just leave without saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. And then page 121, point number 10. Should we have the right to inspect a private fire protection system? Is that within our rights? I mean, if it's a private system. Would that have to do with like a safety code type inspection? I'm just curious about that.
Sorry, which bullet point are you?
Number 10 says the chief administration officer may at any reasonable time inspect and test private fire protection equipment. I'm just curious if it's private. What's our right or our responsibility on that regard?
Through the chair, yeah.
Oh, I can mention a point. So through the chair, I think that clause would probably not super regularly be used. I could think of maybe one development in the county that, we might choose to use it if they were on the system, which they were not. But you kind of want to just make sure that it remains functional. And then you also want to make sure that it's not, there's no faulty fire protection at certain points. If we're hearing reports of something that could be wrong with the system, we just want to make sure that it does kind of protect what it was supposed to do. That's the main thing. But even throughout the issues at the county so far that I've seen in the last 10 years that I've been on staff, I don't think there's been a point that a fire protection, we would actually enact that clause, but maybe in the future, maybe at some point, it's just kind of a clause to have in there. That's a good idea.
Okay.
So just to follow up on that question, I'm just trying to figure out an example. We understand what the intention is, but what happened, sort of the worst case scenario? So could you demand to go into CGC and test their equipment, even though or is this something totally different? Is it can we affect a business demanding that we test their equipment, even though they've got their own insurance and everything else? And when the original equipment went in, it would have had to have passed our fire inspection. So I'm just trying to figure out I just don't want us overstepping our bounds. We can have the best intentions, but you have to look at what happens, what could be the worst case scenario. If
Yeah.
Tyrannical CAO became.
Yeah, that's very true. You know me, I can always switch my opinion on depending on what day I wake up. So, but CGC would be a good example of an instance where not them, sorry, but a development in Goldfinch, if they had a sprinkler system that was required to be operational, and let's just say that there was an issue and we were supposed to provide guaranteed flows to another development down on that system. So if their flow, for some reason, they were taking too much water out of the system, or there was issues with that system and it was just flowing and they were above what they were reserved in that potable water line, or sorry, raw water line. That would be a good example. Again, I would have a hard time understanding when we could actually use it for that purpose, but it would be there. If we didn't have that clause in there, we couldn't go in and inspect. Again, I think that would be such a rare clause to use. However, I think it would be important to have it in there.
I wonder, like, and I'll just throw this out there, if we delineate it out in the top of this page, section 21, where we define private fire protection equipment, I wonder, would there be merit in delineating out private fire protection that's connected to county water system versus one that is using like their own water storage or system? Because I do see merit in having it in bylaw for us to have authorization to inspect when it's connected to, and I think we would want to look at section 2 as well, because it just stipulates potable water, and we might want to include like county water system, so it would be inclusive of raw water as well. Because I could see if we had a significant, say even there was a leak or inflow demand that was compromising flow to development past that, like your example. I think we should have authority to inspect, and obviously in collaboration with the development. But I'm just wondering about delineating that out. I don't know.
Through the chair, these are all good points that administration should take back and do a bit of research and bring back to council. This bylaw by no means is a rush. So you could do first reading, then or council could choose to do first reading, then direct administration to come back with some answers, or council could choose to pass no readings and tell us to come back with the answers as well. Whatever council chooses to do, any amendments, we're here for council's will. Thank you.
So we do have a motion on the floor, or no, we don't have a motion on the floor for first reading yet. So council's wishes, we could pass first reading, direct administration just to review certain sections. I am curious how this intersects with our responsibility as like safety inspection as well, or safety inspectors. But whether that should be addressed in this bylaw or if it's addressed in other approvals like conditions or things like that. If there needs to be ongoing inspection or if it's just at the the approval stage. Council's wishes. And I didn't mean to preclude a few other comments as well or questions if you have them.
That was all I had, actually. Yeah, thank you. I like the idea. I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2025-26, municipal public utilities bylaw, being a bylaw of Wheatland County enacted to regulate the provision and use of municipal public utility services.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. So we've had some discussion regarding the bylaw. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the bylaw, recognizing that we can pass first reading and direct administration to bring the bylaw back to a future council meeting with some potential amendments for consideration? Any other discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
So that motion is carried. And then in terms of process, does administration need a motion, or you would just based on feedback through the discussion?
It sounds like council is pretty specific on the private fire protection equipment, subsection 10. Whatever council would like to do. I think we've got pretty clear direction. council could pass a motion to direct administration to review the, okay, council should pass a motion for us to review the items discussed during after first reading.
And perhaps if the councillor making the motion could consider like all of section 20, just in case there's other sort of related potential amendments for council consideration.
So I will move that council direct administration to review section 20 of the municipal public utilities bylaw and bring back any recommendations to a future meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. We will proceed to agenda item 3.6, DP 2025-077.
Good morning, Council. I'm Suzanne Hayes, Development Officer with Development Permit DP 2025-077. I'll be presenting two applications this morning, beginning on page 141 of the agenda package. This first one is for a wind energy conversion system, Category 2, otherwise known as a WEX 2, and a data processing center. The location plan is on page 150. It is located approximately 8 kilometers northwest of the town of Strathmore, 1.6 kilometers north of Township Road 244 on the east side of Range Road 262. We circulated to surrounding landowners within 1 mile. We didn't receive any written responses. The Western Irrigation District was circulated. They had no concerns. Ember Resources was also circulated. They had no concerns. Internally, Fire Services said the site will require a fire inspection before operating to ensure it meets code. It will need an emergency response plan, and that we should encourage them to install some signage to warn the responders of potential electrical hazards. So these have been added as conditions. The manager of planning and operations required that construction signage be installed, saying that trucks turning during the construction phase. And the planning department summarized how the application aligns with the MDP and LUB. They also said that, so I'm just going to bring up the site map. This property was rezoned on November 12, 2024 to the Direct Control 26 district. It included a conceptual traffic impact assessment, and the review recommended that further details be provided at the development permit stage, such as a traffic accommodation strategy for the construction phase. However, during the development permit phase, the county's third-party engineers advised that this was not required. So we can see here we've got the cell that was rezoned, outlined with the dotted white lines. I'll just give a few details of the application and show a site plan. So it proposes a cryptocurrency mining operation defined as a data processing center in the land use bylaw. The power will be supplied by the adjacent gas powered generator, and it will be a 9.76 megawatt gas fired plant. It'll use the natural gas delivered by pipeline from the compressor facility. It will contain 6 1.475 megawatt generators, one 1.12 megawatt generator, and 7 power distribution racks. The power will be used entirely to power the data processing center. It received approval from the AUC on April 4th, 2024. The site development will include an operations and maintenance trailer, as you can see on the lower left side, and 20 data center containers. The Bitcoin data center equipment is housed inside a specialized shipping container, which will include mining equipment, power infrastructure, cooling systems, and monitoring and controlling systems. There's some illustrations. On page 155, this is the data center, kind of a sea can looking thing. And then the natural gas generator is on the next page, and it also kind of looks like a sea can. So it generally aligns with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the Regional Growth Management Strategy, the MDP, and the LUB. On page 146, I just want to point out the definition, why we do call this a wind energy conversion system, because the definition says, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, that it is the process installation of tower structures or systems required to convert the power in wind, electrical, or mechanical energy required for a business entity with the primary purpose of energy generation and requires approval from the AUC. So we do consider mechanical energy to be a WEX. On page 152, go back there. We can see how they're accessing the site. They did submit a traffic impact assessment, and it is accessed, the site is accessed by an existing approach from Gravel Road 262, Range Road 262. It is connected to Highway 1 about 4 kilometers south. Once operational, there will be light vehicle traffic with 1 person on site 24 hours a day, 1 to 2 employees per shift. The operational traffic is not anticipated to exceed what is currently produced by Ember Resources, who owns this compressor facility. Additionally, it was noted that the applicant will be accessing the development via a private road currently used to access the Ember facility, and an agreement should be provided to confirm Ember's acceptance. This has been added as a condition to this permit. On page 157, we can see the stormwater management and drainage plan. So there is a wetland in the east draw, but it is the result of human activity and appears fed mostly from discharge from the compressor site. As such, there does not appear to be any significant concern regarding water body impacts for the development. The impervious surface proposed is small, so there will be no net increase in runoff from the parcel due to the development, and all additional stormwater overflow created by these impervious surfaces will be directed to adjacent absorbent landscape to further mitigate any impacts. The adjacent wetland is to be retained with erosion and sediment control methods, which were outlined in the Osprey Engineering Stormwater Management Report, which was attached to this report. At the end of life, the reclamation plan should restore the site to a similar condition, and the provincial regulator, which was the AUC, has the appropriate authority to verify these conditions have been met. Additionally, the AUC, they were required to submit a noise impact assessment, an air quality assessment, an environmental evaluation summary, and an environmental protection plan. And they have all been reviewed by the AUC as part of the approval process. In addition, the AUC approved that the proponent applied to Alberta Environment and Protected Areas for an industrial designation, and approval was received on February 27th, 2025. Staff's recommendation is on page 141. Staff, in consideration, the staff considered that the proposal aligns with the MDP policies and the LUB requirements. Applicable studies were provided and reviewed during redesignation, development, permit, and AUC approval process. Subsequent concerns may be reported to the authority having jurisdiction. No concerns were raised from surrounding landowners, and conditions have been added to address emergency response. So staff are recommending that Council approved DP 2025-077 for a wind energy conversion system category 2 and a data processing center, subject to the 21 conditions noted, including condition 11 for a fire inspection, condition 12 for an emergency response plan, 13 for signage for hazards and company contacts. Council has the standard 3 response options, and that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move
I have
that
a
council.
question.
Sorry. I'll move that council approves DP 2025-077 for a wind energy conversion system category 2 and a data processing center subject to the conditions 1 through 21.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any discussion? Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Kester, and then we'll go to Councillor Eichert.
Okay. That's noise. And it's got nature, noise, volume, recurrent or in a time of day. And number 15 right above it says this plant's going to operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we got, I don't know how many generators are going to be running at once, one or all of them. I don't know how noisy they are. I heard that the AUC reviewed the noise impact study. I'm just curious, is that study sufficient for the county? Can we use that as public information if somebody has concerns about the noise after they're up and operating? Or can we regulate this noise in a different way? I don't know. I'm a little leery about the noise of all these generators, and if we have a way to control them. Anything else on that site is probably pretty straightforward, but the noise and that many generators and the size of them, they could be a problem.
Thank you, Councillor Kester.
Through the chair, so the AUC, we're not allowed to review anything that was already decided by the AUC. So they did review the noise assessment study. I did put this condition in, I guess if there was something outside of what they had already reviewed and found to be acceptable, that we would have an avenue that we could regulate it.
My question is just about the exact same thing. I understand the concept of these are contained units and they should be relatively quiet. But we need, as long as we've got some enforcement method, because this is going 24/7, 365. So if it gets -30, I'm going to be able to hear these things from my place. We don't want that. So it's just as long as we've got some sort of a mechanism in this that we can enforce if the system doesn't work like they say it works. So that's all I'm want in there.
Through the Reeves Council, Wheatland County does have our noise bylaw as well. And the purpose of that bylaw is to enacted to protect, preserve, and promote the safety, health, and welfare, peace, and quiet of residents of the county through reduction, control, and prevention of any noise that annoys or disturbs the peace of reasonable persons of ordinary sensitivity. So I think that we could rely on that bylaw if it does become an issue. Thank you.
What happens if there's a complaint and we do not, and AUC says it's fine, that they're within the jurisdiction, because we don't know what that number is, right? We don't know because that is not in, they've already decided what that is, and we can't contest that. Are we not sort of contesting that if the neighbor, because there are neighbors pretty close to this, they're within half a mile of this. So there could be complaints about this because it is running all the time. So I'm just wondering how this works, how the mechanism works, that we have a complaint and it's bothersome, but it's still within the guidelines of the AUC.
Through the chair to council, the AUC decision and the requirements they have for noise would prevail. With relying on our noise bylaw, we are limited to what we're doing because we would have to do the decibels at the location and then at the nearest home. And keep in mind, there would be a ranking of decibel noise. So what would probably show up as acceptable, sometimes with a lawn tractor they put with background noise, still may be objectionable to the resident, but may be within the parameters of what's acceptable for the decibels for that area. So that would be difficult to administer, and it would something we would have to follow up with AUC on. It's not something that we could probably do a stop order to stop them from operating when they have AUC approval. So we'd have to work with AUC on what we could do. This one, because the direct control district came in first and this followed later for the gas powered thing, we're limited as to what we can do at this point for the noise. Go ahead.
Stefan just pointed out that the AUC approval only applies to the power generation and not to the data processing. So if there was something specific to the data processing, we could address that.
We can't address anything with the electrical generation part of it.
Correct.
So I remember when this came before us, were all the people in the area, were they notified like within a mile radius of, they were all notified? We had no.
That is correct. I had one lady call and wanting some information, and I did send her a lot of the documents, and she didn't have any further comments.
And when AUC does this approval process, they would also do, they would also check with everybody that's in the area?
I believe yes, they have to do that. I'm not sure if they actually advertise it in a paper, but they do have to do a notification.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Not hearing any, I will call the question.
I'm in favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 3.7.
This application begins on page 170. It is for an accessory building requiring a variance. The location plan is on page 175. It is located within the Lakes of Muirfield, 200 meters west of the intersection of Muirfield Crescent on the south side of Muirfield Boulevard. It was circulated to adjacent landowners +1. We didn't receive any responses. The HOA did not provide a response. The Western Irrigation District had no concerns. Fire Services said that the homeowner should be aware that if there is a fire in the shed with its close proximity to the home, there is a high potential for it to spread to the house. And planning provided a summary of how the application aligns with the IDP, the ASP, the MDP, and the LUB. Lots of acronyms. Page 177. We have some photos. There's the site plan, so you can see the small shed there circled in red. And then page 178, we have a photo of it. So it was a compliance review that was completed, and it identified the non-compliant building located. It is less than 100 square feet, so it would not require a development permit if it met the setbacks, but it is 0 meters from the dwelling, and it needs to be 1.52 meters to meet the land use bylaw requirements. So as I mentioned, Fire Services did have a comment to advise the homeowner. The options in order for the homeowner to get a compliance status on their real property review was they could remove the shed, move it into compliance, or apply for a variance, and they chose to apply for a variance. So staff's recommendation is on page 170. It did consider the LUB variance criteria and the fact that no concerns were raised from surrounding landowners or the HOA. Staff is of the opinion that the variance criteria has been met and has provided a recommendation on that basis. So staff have recommended that DP 2025-107 has been approved for the accessory building requiring a variance subject to the 3 conditions. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'll move that council approve DP 2025-01-107 for an existing accessory building requiring a variance subject to conditions 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 5, the consent agenda. Council's wishes.
I would like to move to remove item 5.6, the Alice request for letter of support, and add it under agenda item 6.1.
Thank you. I was hoping somebody would. We'll vote on that motion first. I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. Are there any other consent agenda items that any councillor would like to remove for discussion? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
Favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 6.1, which was 5.6 of the consent agenda. Councillor Lapriest, do you want to speak to your rationale for bringing it for discussion?
Yeah, I guess I would, I'd like to make a motion that council direct administration to provide a letter of support for the Ecosystem Services Grant Program application for Alice. It's well documented in the request letter that Alice is a well-known and prominent provider of these ecosystems services, and so I think we should support them.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. So you made a motion directing administration. Perfect. Any discussion regarding the motion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 7.1. I had requested council's consideration to ratify per diems and expenses for events listed on page 239. The rationale being that each of these events provided opportunities to connect with provincial leaders. The premier was at several events, multiple cabinet ministers, global investors from all over the world were at several of the investment events. And it was a good opportunity to showcase Wheatland County and present basically our value proposition of why we are an excellent place for investment and for development. There was some significant, I guess, potential interest in developments in Wheatland County. Just go to my notes. You will get more information. And the reason I believe our remuneration policy directs us to get approval prior to events. So I recognize that that's challenging because then you don't have the report when you're considering it. But July 9th was a 17-hour day. So it was very long in terms of a number of events. The Calgary Stampede is just an incredible opportunity where you have basically business people and leaders from honestly around the world. I am trying to think of how many countries I spoke to investors from. Probably 10, 14. And it's very efficient because everybody is gathered in one place. And you really have like some of those high level decision makers, which is rare for that foreign investment as well, to have those kind of gathered in one place. It's also an honor that we were invited, that Wheatland County was invited to participate at these events. Not every municipality, from my understanding, is they can't accommodate every municipality in Alberta. So I think it's an honor that we are invited to participate and then we have that opportunity. Just looking at my report that will come forward. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And the Calgary Region Hydrogen Hub, I think, was on there as well. That was from June, and I had just neglected to bring it forward. That was the grand opening of the Calgary Region Hydrogen Hub, and so I had the honor of speaking with the Premier and the Mayor of Calgary. This is a great collaborative project between us and the city, and will really foster exploration of the hydrogen opportunity and in a really efficient way, and to develop a hub that Edmonton has already been quite successful and is further along than the Calgary hub is. But we have seen some results coming out of that Edmonton hub that are promising for the Calgary region as well. So I think it's an excellent opportunity that we're presenting, or that we're participating in with the Hydrogen Hub, and I was honored to represent us there. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Of course, Councillor Kester.
As Reeve, it's your prerogative to go to these things or not go to them. That's always been my understanding. In the past, the Reeve would go, ask for compensation. But a number of years ago, we had a review of the compensation. And at that review, it was recommended and council adopted it. And I believe, just going off a timesheet, the Reeve gets $6,723 yearly to attend functions such as this. You still would report on it. So I would like to know, is this $6,700 not enough for the functions you go to? Or why is this over and above the $6,700, I guess?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kester. I think there's always been some additional increased pay for the Reeve position. It was increased at one point because there was I believe an external third party had done a review, and Wheatland County showed some significant disparity relative to similar municipalities to Wheatland County. I don't think the council decision at that time closed that gap, but it did narrow it somewhat. And I don't think it's been done since then. I feel like that was done in maybe 2019 potentially. Prior to that, our former administration had indicated that the previous Reeve had just put events on their timesheet and had not brought them forward and was compensated for them, and had not had them ratified by council resolution and had strongly recommended I continue that process. That was not aligned with our policy. So I have endured bringing these forward to council for my entire term as REEF. Happy to do so, and pleased to align with our policy. In terms of whether that's adequate, that's council's decision. That's why I'm bringing this forward today. Obviously, as REEF, there's significantly more responsibility regarding presiding over meetings, authorizing financial payments, CAO holiday, things like that. And also just significantly more responsibilities, I would say, in terms of communicating with ratepayers, being the spokesperson, and attending events. You'll see, and all of our timesheets are publicly available on our website and now being published with our reports, that there's a number of events that I attend that I do not request ratification for. Often those are local, don't have significant expenses in terms of parking or mileage. I think if I did add up even the mileage and some of the expenses for that, it would likely exceed the differential between councillor compensation and REEF compensation. And then you're really not providing any compensation for your chief elected official for all of the additional responsibilities within that role. So I guess ultimately it's up to council to answer that question. But I am bringing these forward. There is significant parking expenses when you're parking near the Stampede. I tried to be as efficient as possible. I think I walked 10 kilometers on the 16th to save ratepayers money so I could just park in one place and walk to multiple events. Yeah, it's council's discretion.
Further comment. I think your memory or council or whoever memory you talked to about the former REEF, which was myself, I did not just put down events I went to and put them down on my timesheet. I had a motion for every one of them, I believe. It was because of when I was REEF, that's when the third party did an assessment, and they said part of that assessment was that the REEF was under, and that's where their $6,700 come in. And I did not receive any of that $6,700. I was report become final.
Council's wishes.
I went to that, I wanted to be compensated. I don't think that was appropriate that you would mention that. I just brought it in and staff paid for it. Staff are very diligent in what they pay for and not pay for.
I can only report what was communicated to me by administration at the time. And we would have to review previous council motions and timesheets to clarify which is correct. But the matter at hand today is my request for ratification of the events that are provided in the RFD. Councillor Laprise.
So I hear what Councillor Kester is saying, but I do think that these are over and above what might be contemplated in our compensation package. So I'll move to ratify per diems, mileage and parking for the REEF's attendance at the events listed on page 239 of our package.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any further discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor.
Recorded vote, please.
Certainly, Councillor Kester.
I'm still in favor.
In favor.
I am definitely in favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
Opposed.
That motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. We'll move to agenda item 7.2, Wheatland County Solar Array Performance Report.
I had this brought forward just to bring to administration. There's been considerable interest in the villages and that kind of stuff about going into solar, using solar as trying to save money and that kind of stuff. And I thought, what a great time we have a solar array. We've had it for a long period of time now. We should be able to judge, like, because everything you hear on a solar array, you're hearing all the positives from a salesman. So we should be able to figure out what the practicality of this is. And it's just a learning exercise, nothing more than that. Just maybe they do perform like they were told they were going to perform. Maybe they don't. And I just wanted to find out. And we now have I think we have the data now because we've been tracking it for somewhere around 10 years, I would guess. So, and that's why I want this, I've brought this forward.
Do you want to put a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion that council direct administration to present at the next council meeting a report outlining the current and projected financial status of the solar array installed at the county administration building, including an updated estimated payback period based on the latest data.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm super interested to hear what the details of this. But I would say that in 10 years, probably technology has changed a lot, and I'm not sure you could apply it necessarily apples to what's available now. But saying that, I absolutely will. I'm interested to know what how our solar array is doing.
Any other discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.3.
Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 245 of your agenda package is the Council Resolution Tracker for August 12th, 2025. As always, the resolution tracker is attached to this report. It starts on page 248. Anything in green is deemed complete. Anything in yellow is deemed ongoing. If there's any questions about the Council Resolution Tracker, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Henderson. Council's wishes.
I move that council accept the council resolution tracker dated August 12th, 2025 as information.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 7.4.
Yes, good morning, Councilor Brian from Administration again. On page 257 of your agenda package is the Human Resource Policy 6.9.11 remote work. So this report was brought forward from a resolution that was passed at the April 15th, 2025 council meeting. At that council meeting, council passed a resolution that council directed administration to expand the current compensation review to include an analysis of comparable municipalities and their respective work from home policies as a component of total compensation, and further that council directed administration to draft a work from home policy for administrative staff for council's consideration. So administration went back to our contractor that did the compensation review for all staff. The contractor noted in his response that he was not experienced in that aspect of including total compensation with work from home into pay grid. He's just never seen that before, but he did advise us that we probably should contact our neighboring municipalities, including the municipalities that were included in that report. So we did put out a email to comparable municipalities and did follow up with the ones in the report. And none of them did consider work from home as any part of the compensation included in the municipalities' pay grids. So that will be part of Council Resolution 1. Resolution 1 in this report. And Resolution 2 is just the approval of the policy that administration did prepare, which was the second part of that resolution that council did request. So that policy starts on page 260 of your agenda package. Policy is fairly vague in general. However, it is just the general practices that we have been following here at Wheatland County. So, you know, if the position is available for work from home, they cannot rely on other staff members to do it. Any parts of their position from home, photocopying, printing, delivering documents, things like that. And then, of course, just other things that are outlined in that policy. So if there's any questions about this report, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Henderson. Council's wishes.
I just have a comment.
For sure. Go ahead, Councillor Custer.
I don't hear it a lot, maybe monthly, once a month, every other month for sure. But there are some ratepayers out there that they come to the county office and whoever they wanted to speak to, not available, working from home that day. They say, yeah, they phone back and everything's worked out okay. But there is a feeling that they walk into the county office and sometimes, some days, appears to be just about empty. And they will really have concerns about it. They don't waste them that much, but they're paying wages and there's not people there. So I just want staff to be aware of that, and fellow councillors, that there are people certainly have concerns. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Custer. Any other discussion?
I'll move that council accepts the report regarding the consideration of work from home policies as a component of total compensation.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. So second motion.
I move that council approve Human Resources Policy 6.9.11 remote work.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor.
In favor?
Favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. I want to thank administration for their work on this policy. I think it strikes a good balance between modern HR kind of practices and operational requirements for the county, with consideration of attraction and retention of a strong team, with also obviously balancing that with the service delivery component of the county operations. So thank you for your work on this policy. We appreciate it. We'll move to agenda item 7.5.
Morning, Council. Joel again from administration to walk through our 2025 version of the property tax statistics. We've done this for, I think, 2 or 3 years now in a row. And so generally what we do is we track the regular tax deadline, which is June 30th. And once that's finished and we've done all of our finance stuff and reconciling, we look as of that date and do some statistics as to the collectability and the outstanding taxes and provide that to council. So our first table here that we provided was just showing the total gross tax levy, around $44 million. And then the next column there is the total outstanding balance of about 9.6 million, or 22% uncollected at that point. That just provides kind of a high level perspective of what's available or still to be paid for the rest of the year. And then the second table in the report, we break that down further, because the full $9 million, a large portion of that are people under the TIPS program. They pay monthly. And so they're, as long as they're in good standing, they're not attributable to penalties and late fees. It's a good program for the county and for residents, provides flexibility, reliable cash flow for the county. And so we like to break that out because it's not really a value of concern there, that $7.6 million. And then we show a small change in assessments. If anyone has an appeal or something that goes through, then their due date may differ than the June 30th date. So we also identify that value and pull that out. So then what we're left with is the $1.9 million in that last column of the uncollected amount that are essentially at that point considered late and would have their penalties applied. So that total uncollected amount amounts to about 4% of the total gross taxes. The most relevant, I guess, graph or data set that we have in here that's easiest to kind of digest is just the trend history we see here. So the blue columns represent the total uncollected tax, and that would include the tips and all of those gross values. And then the orange one is the actual true late accounts. And so that would be the one that council would probably be the most concerned about or have most interest in seeing. You can see that it's a relatively good trend the last few years of dropping down. It's very close to the last year's uncollected, about 4.4%. It's 4.3% last year. And then just for information, we also show the end of year outstanding collected balance in that gray column. So obviously for 2025, we don't have that number. But again, with the audit for 2024 and all of that information being available, we can see that the uncollected value remains about the same as the 2023 total. And then finally, we also just show in terms of, rather than percentages, in terms of like how many millions of dollars does that show in terms of arrears taxes or any taxes that are outstanding from prior years. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accepts the 2025 property tax statistics report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.6, Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act related policy updates.
Good morning, Council. Corey from Administration. Here to talk about the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act related policy updates found on page 268. This is just a general housekeeping item that we're taking care of. And essentially, we are just changing the language of the FOIP Act, which has been repealed, and just replacing with the ATIA, Access to Information Act and Protection of Privacy Act. So basically, administration went through all the different policies to locate those and just made reference updates. There's only one change from $10,000 to $5,000 penalty change that was noted in the information security policies. But other than that, it's just administrative. And so we're just informing council. And that can, one thing I wanted to note is we do still have some more updates, some housekeeping. So our bylaws will be up next for updates with this as well. We have a year to get a lot of this things done. And so council will be seeing some new stuff. So plans, policies, and that kind of things just related to the new acts. So, and that concludes my report. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council accepts the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act related policy updates report as information.
Thank you, Councillor LaPriest. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We will move to, and thank you. I know it's a huge undertaking when there's a legislative change like that, so we appreciate how quickly you brought forward these revisions and look forward to the future ones. We'll move to agenda item 7.7.
Morning, Joel from Administration here. So this next agenda item is the Commercial Vehicle Inspection Program from January to June 2025. This is a standard report that Administration brings to Council every 6 months with just the request, and Council has the historically accepted and requested the write-off of the invoicing for the commercial vehicle inspection program that's provided to the Strathmore Handy Bus. So in this case, it represents, I think, around 13 hours of work for the 6-month period, $4,050. And so everything is fairly standard in prior reports. Just something to note as well is that with the fee schedule that was approved earlier this morning, that the CVIP rate going forward will be dropped to $200. So that concludes my presentation. Available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move that council direct administration to write off the commercial vehicle inspection program invoice for January to June 2025 in the amount of $44,050 for the Strathmore Handy Bus Association and provide this service as in kind.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.8, county in-kind donations update.
Morning again, Joel from administration. So this next report, again, it's a quarterly standard report that finance provides to council. And we gather all of the in-kind contributions and events that have been provided by administration from by managers for that quarter, and do with the estimated value or market value of that event, and then we list it off in a table. So you can see all of the ones for this quarter listed in date order, and then in addition to that, with the final table and report, just a quarter by quarter comparison for the totals that have been provided as in-kind contributions. Staff are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just for historical purposes, I think you have Rosebud Theater, the Valley Trail run in twice. So total amount probably needs to be adjusted by $188 down. Just future, just for the sake of.
Thank you.
Sorry, Joel.
Any other questions?
Sorry, besides that, I'll move that council accepts the county in-kind donations update Q2 2025 report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 7.9. Proposed Vialta area waste transfer site location. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Cody Zimmerman with administration to present the proposed Vialta area waste transfer site location report. Find it here on the screen. There we go. So the Vialta area waste transfer site project was first approved by council in 2019 with the aim to establish a new waste transfer site location within the northwest region of the county, specifically within Division 5. This new site would provide more localized service to the area residents and relieve operational pressures at the Wheatland West Waste Transfer Station located south of Strathmore. The formation of the new site has also been approved by the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association, who will be included in the review of the site design as it progresses. A major impediment to the development of the new site has been the acquisition of suitable land meeting the required criteria within the desired area. Site selection criteria included the following: a centralized location within the region, close proximity to population nodes within Division 5, located along an established high traffic corridor running through the region, preferably paved to avoid dust issues, and the need for additional road improvements. Limited number of affected residences and a land size of approximately 3 to 4 acres. Administration is proposing to utilize the existing county gravel stockpile location located on Range Road 264 between Township 244 and Township 250 at southeast at 322426.
The 2.84 acre site is centrally located within Division 5, is county owned, and is located on a private roadway in close proximity to the hamlet of Lyelta. Administration is currently reviewing options to relocate the stockpile location to other county-owned lands within the area should the transfer site development proceed. A high-level preliminary design detailing the proposed orientation and layout of the transfer site, along with a map detailing the approximate proposed service area of the site, has been provided with the report. The current zoning of the stockpile location is agricultural general, and rezoning of the lands to public utility would be required. This may be achieved either through the typical land redesignation process, which would include circulation of the application to adjacent landowners and other departments and agencies, a public hearing and bylaw readings, or alternatively, council may opt to pass a bylaw under section 655 of the Municipal Government Act to designate the parcel as PUL, which forgoes the requirements of the rezoning application and public consultation. Following approval of the redesignation of the lands, detailed design of the site, and any necessary assessments and or approvals required for the development permit application would be completed. As part of the DP approval, the Development Authority would also need to grant variances to the Environmental Protection Agency setback for waste transfer sites from residences, which states that a waste transfer station must be set back a minimum of 300 meters from residence. There are currently 3 individual residences that have been identified to fall within the required 300-meter setback. An aerial map has been provided that identifies the site, the residences, and the approximate setback distances. The EPA has established setback distances for transfer site facilities in order to create a buffer from a range of factors that may affect adjacent properties, such as nuisances like odors, smoke, and noise, and contaminant migration, such as groundwater and landfill gas, which we would not have, obviously, with this site. The distances can be reduced only if the aforementioned factors are not present or if mitigative measures are put in place. In order for a development authority to approve a variance to the residential setback, the DP application must include the following additional submissions: the types of waste to be stored, treated, or disposed, details about the facility operations, an engineering report that includes a statement on if the reduced setback is feasible and if any mitigative measures are required. The engineering report is to include the following information specific to transfer stations, which would be an odor assessment and a wind direction and air emission odor plume diagram, being now that smell and noise would be our 2 main factors that would require mitigation. A certifying statement, and then if any mitigative measures are required, the design details, monitoring, and maintenance requirements for those mitigative measures. Following DP approval, the Development Authority must provide notification to the EPA of the waste transfer station approval and should also notify the EPA of a reduced setback distance via the appropriate forms. Once received, the EPA will send an acknowledgement of receipt of the notification, and no formal EPA approval is required for this class of facility. Lastly, the project will be tendered and constructed in accordance with the associated budget approved by council. And on the next page here, we have a detailed list of the associated costs, which also includes the contracted costs, in-house costs that could be taken on by county forces, engineering percentage, and 20% contingency. These costs would be further refined and contingencies reduced following the completion of the detailed design, meaning that this preliminary design is extremely high level right now and it's based off of just really rough numbers. Administration recommends the council proceed with the required redesignation process for the lands, which would include obviously the circulation to all the surrounding landowners and going through the regular process. And pending council approval and successful redesignation, administration will present a project budget amendment during the regular annual budget review to fund detailed design and development permit approval in 2026 and construction 2027. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the report? Council's wishes.
I'll move that administration proceed with the redesignation process for the county-owned lands located southeast of 32-24-26 west of the fourth meridian for the purpose of proposed development of a waste transfer station within Division 5.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any discussion?
I've just got one question, and it's, the trans stores. Are they not owned by the Drumheller Waste Management? Like, do they not have, and somehow that they buy it? Like, does this put any extra stress on Drumheller Waste, or is that all taken care of in the process?
Through the chair, when this was originally proposed to the Drumheller DDSWMA, it's a long one, sorry. They passed a resolution, I guess you'd call it, within their minutes that they would approve of the site, but any costs for the site would be borne by the county. So that would include the trans store. They would not be purchasing this one, though they own the majority of them within the county. This one would have to be purchased and owned by us.
So we'd buy the trans stores, but we would own these particular, the two that are called for here.
That's correct. They would be in a county-owned asset, and they would still be serviced by the association.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. We will move to agenda item 7.10, restricted bridge report.
All right. Hello, Council. Cody Zimmerman again. So just go through this report. I'll try and be as short and concise as possible, I guess. There's a lot of information packed in here, and I'm sure everybody has a lot of questions, so try and get through it. So at the May 6th, 2025 regular council meeting, council passed CM 2025-05-27, directing administration to provide a report on the current bridge restrictions, including the location and low ratings of the restricted bridges, and to identify potential remedies or upgrade options to increase the load capacity where feasible. So just a little background. In spring of 2025, administration undertook a comprehensive review of Wheelan County's restricted bridge list under the advisement of the county's contract bridge inspector. A review of the list had not been undertaken for several years, and the changes made to the legal allowable load ratings for local roads, and with the changes made to the legal allowable load rating for local roads made by the province in 2020, it was overdue to be updated. At the time the review took place, there were 32 bridge structures on the restricted list. Following the in-depth review by the bridge inspector, the removal of 9 bridge structures from the list was recommended, either due to the structures having been replaced with a new structure, being replaced with large diameter culverts, or having been removed and not replaced. 1 structure was recommended to have weight restrictions reduced, and 12 structures were recommended to be added to the list based on a review of specific criteria focusing on the age of the structure, the overall condition of the concrete girders and or timber substructure, and those structures having a structural condition rating of 50% or less. There were several additional structures that had been recommended to be restricted but were not due to repairs having been made in recent years between inspection cycles that allowed the bridge to maintain their current allowable load rating. The majority of the bridges added to the list were restricted to 54 tons on the CS3 or B train classification only. 3 structures were restricted to 10 tons across all classes, which have all been previously reported to council through regular monthly reporting. The changes resulted in a net increase of 3 structures being added to the county's restricted bridge list. Presently, there are currently 35 bridge structures with restrictions imposed on them, representing 53% of the county's total bridge inventory, not including bridge-sized culverts. The updated restricted bridge list, including supplemental information about each bridge and a map of the restricted bridge locations, has been provided with the report, and the official restricted bridge list and map will be uploaded to the county website following this report and the list may also be obtained from the Alberta Transportation website. Following the updating of the bridge list, administration then undertook a review of a restricted bridge signage at all affected locations. Ensuring that locations were adequately signed, that advanced notice signs were in place, the existing signs were legible, that the correct restrictions were noted, and that any signs not required were removed. It was discovered during this review that some of the locations that had been previously identified on the list had, at the time of the review, no signage in place, and that issue was corrected. So that's it for the background on the review that was conducted at that time and the restrictions that have been implemented. So the following section just contains some supplemental information on bridge signage, specifically identifying different truck classes, configurations, and what those apply to, because it's more than just what the picture on the sign is. And I won't go through those in detail, but just even though we call it the B train class and it's a picture of a B train, it applies to different truck configurations beyond that. So just something to be aware of. And then, so the numbers on a restricted bridge sign show the maximum gross vehicle weight in tons allowed for each truck configuration. And these symbols help drivers to quickly determine whether the vehicle can safely cross a weight restricted bridge or not. So essentially when you're traveling 80 kilometers an hour, it's just a quick, yeah, I can cross that bridge with what I'm driving. Bridge's load rating comes from a detailed analysis of its age, condition, materials, span length, and overall design, combined with the weight, number, and axle spacing of vehicles expected to use it. Gross vehicle weight matters only to the extent that it reflects those axle spacing requirements and the maximum allowable axle loads for each truck class. So it's a very wordy way of answering a question. I know that has come up many times about B trains crossing short span bridges, but basically those weight restrictions are essentially not looking at the gross vehicle weight, but at the axle point loads as it crosses the bridge. Sorry, I'm just gonna take a quick sip here. So a little further background on some recent regulatory changes for road and bridge load ratings. So prior to January 1st, 2021, the legal weight limit for CS3 or truck train configurations with tri-drive or TRIDEM groups on Alberta local roads, which is roads that are not part of the provincial highway network, was 54 ton. So that was the max for all local roads. And the bridges on these roads inherited the same default rating, unless a structure required a lower limit and no load posting signs were necessary at that point. So because the road was 54 tons, the bridges were automatically 54 tons and did not require posting. Effective January 1st, 2021, Alberta Transportation amended the commercial vehicle dimension and weight regulation, eliminating the lower local road threshold and aligning it with the primary and secondary highways at 63.5 ton for CS3 vehicles. To implement this change in the bridge network, Alberta Transportation issued a subsequent BIM advisory bulletin, adding that the following instruction to the BRIM Inspection and Maintenance System Inspection Manual, which basically noted that if a bridge was rated at 62 tons or above, it did not need to be posted. And if it was posted under 62 tons, then it had to either be assessed or the signs had to be installed stating that it was a lower tonnage, so restricted. So under this directive, the local road authority must ensure that every bridge with recorded CS3 capacity below 62 ton, again, is either reassessed and confirmed to safely carry a 63.5 ton CS3 vehicle or load posted at the previously unposted 54 ton limit. It should be noted that the county maintained bridges recently reposted at the CS3 54 ton limit had earlier BIM ratings of CS3 62 or higher. The downgrade was prompted by condition-related deterioration identified in the latest inspections under Alberta Transportation's BIM Level 1 Inspection Manual. And any bridge whose calculated CS3 capacity falls below that legal threshold must be posted for the lower rating. So these bridges were reviewed, and because of the condition, the age, and the type of materials used, they had to be downgraded, and as such were posted in accordance with the directive. Updating bridge capacity ratings through new engineering analysis. So this goes on to more about what can be done. So the county's bridge engineering consultant estimates that a full rating analysis would cost roughly between 10 to 20,000 per bridge, and that's based on the site and the size of the bridge and a few other factors. So it varies a little bit. So a low rating analysis recalculates a structure's safe live load capacity using the latest Canadian Highway Bridge Design Code and Alberta Transportation's Bridge Load Evaluation Manual. The engineer model span length, axle spacing, material properties, and critically the bridge's current condition. Because most county bridges were designed in the 1960s and 70s to earlier CSA S6 editions, re-rating them under present-day design code often reduces their allowable load rating capacity. The consultant therefore cautioned that commissioning these detailed assessments could lead to stricter postings across all truck classes rather than maintaining or raising current limits, because updated calculations under modern codes frequently require lower load capacities than those permitted by earlier standards. So essentially what that is saying is that they're recommending we don't do the assessments because we kind of can be grandfathered essentially under the old standards. As soon as you reassess it at today's standards, which is required to be done at today's standards, in their experience, after doing several of these over the years, the majority of the time, the assessments, the restrictions will actually be greater than what we see currently. So, and then also noting that many of these are now scheduled to be replaced in upcoming years. Doesn't make sense to spend the money and then to have higher restrictions. And then a little background about operating and capital bridge program here. So bridge files are mandated to be inspected on a 52-month cycle unless otherwise recommended to be inspected on a reduced cycle. It takes approximately 5 years to inspect the entirety of Wheelan County's bridge file inventory, which consists of approximately 6 major bridges, 60 standard bridges, and 198 bridge-sized culverts and 2 low-level crossings. The bridge operating budget is primarily dedicated to annual bridge file inspections and maintenance. Following completion of the annual inspections, the bridge inspector provides a detailed list of recommended repairs to the county. The county will then review the recommended repairs and evaluate to what extent repairs should be made based on the age and condition of the structure, severity of the repair, the estimated cost of the repair versus the remaining useful life of the structure, or the significance of the structure within the road network. For non-urgent repairs, the required work is compiled, incorporated into an upcoming operating or capital project budget, tendered and completed during the following year's construction season. The capital bridge budget is primarily dedicated to bridge file replacements, but may include high-cost maintenance items, structure removals, or non-bridge file pipe bores. Structures are identified and prioritized for replacement based upon their overall structural condition rating, their general substructure condition rating, if applicable, their estimated remaining useful life, the cost of the replacement, repair costs, if applicable, and significance of the structure within the road network. The following financial and statistical information details annual operation and capital spending dedicated to bridge inspections, maintenance, and replacement from 2020 to the end of the current corresponding approved budget. Let me just pull that up on the screen here. And so we can see from these tables that bridge spending on maintenance, inspections, and things of that nature has ramped up quite a bit since 2020. We've been spending quite a significant dollar the last 3 years, especially. Probably spend about the same amount next year. And then I'm kind of predicting that things are going to start trending downwards as we do replacements. And now that we've seen a full inspection cycle, I can say with confidence that maintenance is being done and that we're catching up. So Regarding the capital budget, again, you can see spending has been ramping up over the last 5 years significantly. You'll see that it's tapering down on the last 5 years. And the reason for that is that I've always kind of left room in the budget knowing that stuff comes up, right? And so instead of continuously shuffling projects, I'd always kind of left some room in there. And the main reason for that was I've been in this position 5 years. It takes 5 years to get through the inspections, as I noted. So this year is actually year 5. So I've finally had eyes on every single inspection. I know where everything's at now. And the next budget you will see will be a lot flatter because we have a good idea of where things are with regards to maintenance, replacements, all of those items. The one thing I'll note on this capital table as well is for 2025, it's higher than what you'll see on the bridge budget, on the capital bridge budget. And that is because I've taken some of these bridge projects were replaced as part of road projects. So I pulled that budget out of that road project and added it to this because it is a bridge that's being replaced. So that's why that looks so high. The next table here is just kind of a look at our grant funding that we've received over the last few years. So again, not too much over early 2020 there, but as spending has ramped up, obviously STIP funding has also ramped up, which has been great to see. And so the 2026 to 2030 capital bridge budget is currently being drafted, as I've said, with the recent completion of the 2025 inspections. And early projections are indicating that capital spending for bridge file replacements will need to be in the range of 8 to 10 million per year for the next 5 years in order to keep pace. It's kind of a longer term view. We're probably looking at 100 million over the next 10 years. And so that kind of really speaks to why we've been doing so much in maintenance and ramping maintenance up and trying to really push that bubble that we're seeing out over a long term so that we're not trying to replace $100 million in bridges in a year, right? So as we do that maintenance, we're pushing these replacement years out and trying to spread that over the long term, make it a little more palatable for everybody. So the following table on the report here just provides total number of bridges and bridge size culvert replacements that have occurred in the last 5 years, the total number of replacements on the current capital 5-year plan, and then the total number of replacements on the upcoming draft that I've been working on. So as you can see, so 2020 to 2024, we did 22 total replacements, 7 being bridges. The current 5-year budget, as you see it today, is set to replace total 25 structures with 16 bridges. The new draft, which will be 26 to 2030, is looking to replace 33 total structures with 24 bridges. So quite an increase overall. So over this proposed budget over the next 6-year period, so 2026 to 2031, so yeah, it's 25 restricted bridges over the next 6-year period. And so that's where that difference is. You see the 24 versus 25 is that we have some pre-engineering, so we included that just so it was noted. Included in the 2025, if you're including the 2025 replacements that are currently in progress, this new draft budget will represent a replacement of 71% of the bridges on the restricted bridge list. So essentially, counting this year and the next 5 years, 71% of those bridges on that list will be replaced. And the only thing I'm going to add here, I just want to touch on some of these, a couple attachments here. So again, this is our restricted bridge map. The ones that are circled are the ones that are in that 5-year proposed plan, just so everybody's kind of aware of where they are and how they're going to impact them. And then the next page here is our restricted bridge list. And then on that, you can see the year that it was constructed, the estimated year of replacement, how old it is, and the current condition rating. And then where it currently sits on the 5-year budget, where it sits on the draft budget, And then we added in there as well, just any years when maintenance was done on that bridge last, just to help understand why some of these bridges might, even though they have a lower rating, might have been pushed out further in the plan. It's most likely because we did maintenance on that bridge and it wasn't captured in the lake because it would have been between inspection cycles. So if it happened between inspection cycles, we won't see it reflected in the BIM until the next inspection's done. So just a little background information on that. That includes my report, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. It's incredibly comprehensive and I think really important for council to understand due to the critical part that our bridge network plays in our overall transportation network. So thank you for bringing this forward. Does council have any questions? Please go ahead, Councillor Kester.
Yeah, same old question. B-train versus say a Tridem axle, single trailer. It's narrow range. Length span is short. Bridge. Like that one bridge. South of Rocky Ford a little bit.
Councillor Kester, you're intermittently cutting out and your volume's a little bit low.
Super B can be on that bridge at the same time. I don't think any two sets of axles can be on the bridge at the same time. So thereby, a Tridem trailer, when those three axles hit the bridge, they're going to be heavier than the Super B because of a weight restriction. And I don't think it's right that way. If we go with the Super B or a Tridem and just do the axle weight, then the Super B would make it too at the same weight on the bridge at that time. I don't know. Can you explain that to my ratepayers why it has to be this way? Because it affects just about every farmer out there. Harvest is coming. If you don't have a Super B, they haul grain and they hire a Super B. Rates are going to go up across the board. Just because, and I won't say it lightly, but they're going to say just because you read the document and we did a blanket coverage of 54 ton on all the bridges, they actually never even measured them. So can you give me a reason I can tell my ratepayer?
Through the chair, it is a difficult thing to explain, more so because I'm not an engineer and I don't deal with bridge engineering, structural conditions and all that. But to the best of my understanding is to do with point load and understanding what you're saying, that a short bridge may only have one axle on at a time, but the restriction is solely based off the point load of that single axle in that group. So essentially, the truck train configuration with a tri-axle may have a lower load rating than a fully loaded Super B. So even though the whole unit isn't on the bridge, there's a potential that it could have a higher axle rating for an individual axle group, to try and explain it roughly. So now it also gets tricky is that you're right in that it could be that some of these smaller span bridges may be fine to have a B train going across them, but it's very difficult to display that on a bridge restriction sign, right? So as we noted that previously noted in the report here, these classifications encompass a wide variety of configurations, truck trailer spacing. So to try and pull one distinct truck configuration out of there and highlight that as being okay versus the rest makes it quite difficult on the limited signage we have. And so they're just a generic, quick reference for drivers to understand. But noting that those do apply to many different configurations, not just a B train. No, typically that's what we call it. The other thing I guess to note is with these HC girder bridges is the way that they were designed back in the 60s and everything else is that the rebar stringers within them are more heavily concentrated on the edges of the bridge, and the spacing gets wider into the middle of the bridge. For whatever reason, they did it that way back in the day, meaning that it has can withstand more load on the ends than it can in the middle. So a shorter truck, might be hitting either end of the bridge and therefore might be able to withstand a higher load as opposed to a heavier single point load going across it. So there's a number of factors in there, and without doing the detailed assessment for each location, we can't just break that out for you, and neither can the engineering consultant that this one's okay and that one's not. We'd have to go through and do those assessments. But again, that does run that risk within their expertise and what they've seen, that because and these aren't good condition bridges, right? They're old bridges and they're already poor condition for the most part, or what they call unacceptable condition, I guess, or below acceptable condition. And so with that being taken into account, the risk is very high that we will see greater restrictions than we do currently if we proceed with assessments. We did look at that because there are some, like the bridge on the just south of Rockyford on Range Road 233, being restricted is definitely not ideal for anybody going to the sea cleaning plant. However, there is the alternate access on Rockyford West heading out to Highway 21. So there are ways around in certain locations. So, but we did look at that as an option, as doing select locations, and we were really, I guess, I don't want to say warned, but recommended that we don't go down that road. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Well, it's not easy, and that's just the way it is. But no, I don't know what to do. I was thinking of asking that we do a stress test or spend the money on one bridge and stress it and see what it actually comes out at. And maybe at the same time when they're doing the stress test, because in the report it says point of load on the bridge. The Super Bs have the same point of load as the Triton trailer. And if they're restricted, they get the same point load probably as a tandem trailer. That's that can't swallow that, right? But if we were to say pick a short span bridge and actually do a test on it and see what comes back. Right now that short span bridge is okay for everything except for the Super Bs at 54 tons. The Triton axle trailers can go over, and I believe what are they, 40 ton or whatever their weight is. So it's a 20 ton spread weight, I think, on the Triton. But that would give me a better idea, would warn not to test the rest of the bridges. Yeah, if we could go with the draft budget and we get these 33 bridges fixed up in 5 years, I think that would show the public we're trying. And who knows, maybe the next council will say bump that up a few more too. And let's get these bridges done. It's not like we've been warned about these bridges failing. This is an all of a sudden blanket coverage. And when you have a trucker living on one side of the bridge to get to his clients on the other side of the bridge or deliver to that side, it's mileage time. So I'll be okay leaving it the way it is and wait for more ratepayer feedback if we can actually test the bridge. I don't think, I'll ask the question and then you can answer it. What happens if we leave the bridges, all those 54-ton blanket bridges, and we increase it to 63.5 tons? What does that do to us liability-wise? What's that do to the bridge? What's that do to our insurance? I'll leave it go with that. Thanks, Cody. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. I guess I'll try and answer the liability question just a little bit as best I can, and Brian may want to offer more after. But because it has been recommended to us by a certified bridge inspector that this is a problem and there's a potential there for risk, we are, obligated to do something to respond to that, to mitigate the risk, protect the county, prevent liability. Because if we do nothing and then somebody goes through one of these bridges and dies, that's a huge, risk to the county. And there's probably a margin of safety in here. There might be a overabundance of caution, but the alternative is quite a bit worse. There's some short-term pain here, being that you won't be able to haul a full load over every bridge. You have to haul 9 ton less than a full load. And understanding that there is cost to the ratepayers and the producers and everybody in that, or you might have to go around a few more miles, and that'll add time on to your hauling and fuel costs and everything else. And that's why we're taking this drafted budget very seriously. And we're looking at where we can prioritize, which bridge we should be prioritizing and what's going to have the greatest impact to the network and for all the, the most amount of ratepayers to keep operating normally. Again, it's a large number of bridges and a large dollar value over the next 5 to 10 years that we're looking at. So, looking at current county reserves and then the amount outstanding on bridges here, it's a big ask, right? So we are taking it seriously, and we want the ratepayers to know that we're hearing your concerns and we're trying to work through it. We can do an assessment if council chooses to go that way. We can pick a bridge and we can do that. But the odds are that it's going to come back worse than, not better. So hope that answers it. Thank you.
Any other
I
questions?
think about what the answer would be. Would you feel better? I know an engineer, certified, trained bridge inspector made the recommendation. We're pretty well bound to it. And I know you don't want to see any bridge fail and anybody get hurt. But to complete our due diligence, or we would be going over the top and say, like you said, we pick one bridge, we do the test. It puts our ratepayers' mind at ease that we're doing something to, instead of a report, we're actually going to test it. And that puts more credibility on the engineer that recommended it, that it actually tested out that way. Or if it tests the other way, we can make other adjustments. But I'm prepared to make a motion that you pick one bridge, staff the bridge, and you test it. And when you're testing it, ask about the CPBs and the point of load, realizing that CPBs are a lot longer than a lot of our bridges are, and just see what the report comes back at. So I don't think there's any motions on the floor right now. So I would like to make a motion that staff pick a bridge and get it tested. And I just can't see in the report right now how much that cost, but it was sufficient to
Councillor Kester has put a motion on the floor. We can open discussion regarding that motion. Councillor Laverson.
I think, are we addressing that letter from the ratepayer as a separate item, or because it's really related to this item?
Through the chair, our intention would just be for consideration. If council has any items they'd like to bring forward on the letter, feel free to bring forward right now. Thank you.
Okay. So with regard to that letter, this guy who happens to be a professional engineer, is saying the same things that I tried to say at the last meeting. It's unfortunate Brad's not here today, but with your point load and stuff, I get it. But if you read what he's saying, it goes to what I was saying, that we don't need these. And it looks like this report, well, it doesn't look like it. It is. It states it, that these are just blanket restrictions that seem to be applied to bridges just across the board. And I get it. It costs more to assess it individually. But I think given that this represents 53% of all the bridges in the county, this needs to be addressed immediately. At least that's what I heard in your report. So I think, rather than us using reserves in the past to prevent tax increase, which is what most of this council has done, I would propose that restrictions are either revisited and changed to allow B trains to cross the bridges, or we make repairs as soon as possible, because our farmers and our oil and gas operators cannot conduct their business with the current restrictions, and that's a big deal. And I know you say there's a ways around, but there's certain bridges that there aren't ways around that aren't like 20 or 30 miles. That's not a reasonable request for any operator. So I would support Councillor Kester's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Laverson. Any other discussion?
Who sets the bridge standards? Is it county or is it a provincial thing?
Through the chair, that would be Alberta Transportation.
So basically, this is all provincial. We're just trying to catch up to what the provincial, like they set the standards on what.
The standards have changed significantly over the years, and the current standard is, I believe they call it the CL 800, which is basically all new bridges are rated up to 80 ton going forward. So, but yes, they set the standards, they set all the specifications, everything. At the end of the day, they do own all the right of ways, and we just manage them for them, essentially, right? In a nutshell. So we are bound to follow their standards and their guidelines and best practices.
So that would be the reason that our consultant, our bridge consultant, cautions about doing any of these new commission things, because it could turn up and could actually be way worse than it is right now. Because we're working on a provincial standard, and we're now going to try to set a county standard. Like, I understand, I appreciate the work you've done on this is amazing. I see light at the end of the tunnel that, but in 5 years, that the majority of this is going to be taken care of. We're going to be rectified. We're going to get ahead of the ball, so to speak. So I'll be not voting for this, because we hire consultants because we can't possibly know everything. So if the consultant is cautioning against doing this, I'm going to listen to the consultant. So I will be voting against this.
Councillor Laprise.
Yeah, my concern is just what administration is suggesting, that right now producers are able to load their trucks 9 ton less and still use the bridge. It would be terrible if all of a sudden they couldn't use the bridge. They would have to go around or something like that. I want our producers to be able to use our infrastructure as much as they can, and I want us to get to the point where all of our bridges are not restricted. I see that in particular in Division 6, I think there's 11 restricted bridges that I counted and 10 look to be addressed in the next 5 years. I know 5 years is a very long time for producers every year trying to get their harvest done. But I don't see how we can, we've got our bridge plan based on our ability to pay for all of this over the next 5 or 10 years. I like, if they're all further restricted, how are we going to adapt to that? We can't pull more money out of the air. We have a plan. I think we need to stick to the plan. Yeah, it's upsetting for farmers for sure when they can't get around as efficiently as they want to. They can't use the full, volume of their trucks and things like that. But we're in a position because all of these bridges were built at a certain time and they're just, it is what it is. They've come to the end of their life, but we can't replace them all at once. So I don't know. I don't mind doing one bridge, but honestly, I'm scared that it's going to be worse and your ratepayers are going to be even angrier at us. So I don't know how that benefits anybody. I'm not sure if that's the best way to go here.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just to finish off my thoughts on the thing and down heroin. So I think it's $20,000, $10,000 to $20,000 to test the bridge. I don't know if we still do it, but we used to do some anyway. When we used to put bans on our roads in the county, we would have an outfit come and they would test the road and see how stable it is. They would a long pole, whatever they did, but we would spend the money to see when we put the bands on or take the bands off. This is a little bit different. I know it could have the possibility of rating the bridge more, but I'm willing to go with that. But just so we know, I go get my car, my tractor fixed, and the mechanic always says, "Oh, you gotta put this piece in, or it has a possibility it's going to fail." And you say to yourself, "I'm just going to cut it. I mean, I've already spent this much money and I'm going to buy a new one in a couple of years. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to not take his recommendation. Maybe I make it through. Maybe I don't make it through. But still, it's a decision I make on the piece of equipment I got at the time. I don't make the decision because it's 20 years old or 25 years old or the paint's faded, or they got new, better switches out today. It's the same with the bridge, different set. So I think we have to get at least one bridge tested and see how it compares to the recommendations. Just pick one and have some better talks over these Super Ds and these shorter span bridges. And if it's point to load, I'll never be able to convince a ratepayer when they can't get all 1, 2, 3 sets of axles on the bridge at one time, and they can only get one on the bridge at one time. How it's different than a Trident trailer or even a tandem truck. So that's my reasoning, and in one bridge staff ticket, $20,000 approximately.
Councillor Larson.
Just further to the point about Alberta Transportation sets the standards. I don't know that they set the restrictions on our bridges. And regardless of whether we do it, people that understand engineering know that if we get a bridge checked and reviewed and certified by a professional engineer, that is perfectly allowable to do. So I don't see the downside of doing this.
Councillor Laprise.
2 things, I guess I want to say, just in response to Councillor Kester, you can make that choice on your personal vehicle for you and your family. We're making choices for our residents, and I don't think it we can discount what professionals have told us. Just leave that there. I would ask if Councillor Kester would do a friendly amendment on his motion to pick a bridge in Division 6 to get tested, and then I would support.
Yeah, go ahead, pick one in Division 6. If I have to pick it in Division 6, let me talk to staff and I'll pick one. This is a county thing. And I never once suggested that we don't fix the bridge or we just go ahead and raise it. I suggested that we hire a consultant to do the testing on the bridge. That's way different than not doing anything. That's my motion. And I think that's the height of responsibility, is actually getting it tested and qualified with concrete answers.
I have several thoughts I'd like to share. I won't be supporting the motion based on the rationale that testing one bridge is not going to be, it's not going to give us statistically significant data on any other bridge in the county. Every bridge in our county has unique span, length, design type, age, condition, and that single analysis will not represent the performance or load capacity of any of our other bridges. Obviously, it's been pointed out to us that there is a high likelihood of stricter limits, which is going to exacerbate the issues that our agricultural and producers and energy operators are already experiencing. And so it's not going to improve, or the likelihood is that it will not improve operational access. There's also, I think, a risk of creating unrealistic expectations either way that it goes. So if the bridge by chance rates higher, it could create false expectations that similar results could be achieved for our other restricted bridges when our professionals have indicated that the likelihood is that due to deterioration and all of the factors that administration have pointed out, even if we could reduce the restriction, that's not likely representative of the other restricted bridges. On the other hand, if it rated lower, I think it could create unnecessary concern about the safety of our bridges and our transportation network. And if that's the reality, that's the reality, but it still could just reduce trust in our transportation network. I also think it's a poor return on investment. Every dollar that we divert away from immediate maintenance or renewal and maintenance of our existing transportation network for assessment are dollars that could be put into actually improving our network. We are meeting our regulatory compliance, and under no circumstances would I support not aligning with the regulatory framework put in place by the province. I think we need to recognize that those decisions made by the province were not arbitrary. They were based on provincial standards, and they were driven by data at the time that they were made. I'm sure they also had engineers that were involved in those regulatory changes. The fact is, and RMA did some pretty cursory work, but there's over $2 billion of bridge liability across the province and rural municipalities. And the preliminary analysis showed that provincial bridges were in similar states of deterioration, and it's going to require massive investment from every rural municipality and from the province to keep our transportation network strong and functional for all of our industry. I do want to emphasize, because it keeps being repeated, but it's counter to what our administration is saying, is that the point raised around bridge length versus axle spacing was addressed in those recommendations in the regulatory framework from the province. And we can't legally exempt certain classes of vehicles. That's simply not legal, if I understand correctly, from a legislative perspective from the province. Obviously, if you had the inspection and you could raise the overall rating, that would be different. Yeah, so I won't be supporting the motion. I very strongly appreciate all of the information that was brought forward. I think it validates the asset management work that we've done, and it validates the strategic decisions that council have made in supporting the budget that have been brought forward by administration in terms of capital maintenance and renewal for our infrastructure. This is, as has been pointed out, a critical element of this. And I'll echo Councillor Laprise and Councillor Kester and Larson's comments. I know how frustrating this is for industry, and it's terrible. It's a terrible state, but the reality is this is where we're at. The reality is we are committing significant investment to address this issue. And 5 years is a long time out, but I also am really proud that we have the fiscal capacity to address these in what I believe is a relatively timely manner. I appreciate how comprehensive administration has been in addressing this. I suspect some of it is exacerbated because we do have signage up on bridges that were restricted previously. And so there's that increased awareness because the signage has been improved. We have to face reality. These are safety issues. And so I appreciate that the signage has been put in place, and that has obviously raised awareness about the restrictions that are in place, but that is just the reality of infrastructure that was primarily built in the 60s and 70s. And I think the county's done an exceptional job, you know, over the decades of maintaining that infrastructure, but there's still realities we have to face. So I won't be supporting the motion primarily because it's not going to provide really relevant data to future decision making. And were we to assess all of the bridges, which would provide relevant data, that's a relatively significant investment that would be diverting away from other capital maintenance work. So those are my thoughts. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
One more.
Pardon, Councillor Kester?
One more comment, if I can.
Certainly.
Getting one bridge tested is relevant data. Depending how the test works out, we can test more, and then you would know for sure for the rest of them. Or how the one test works out, maybe that's all we do. Okay. It is relative data. It is needed data for sure. And I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Certainly. And I will agree it's relevant data to that single bridge, but it's not representative of the rest of our bridge inventory. And the advice that we have been provided indicates that the probability is that it would actually increase the restriction on that single bridge, and conversely on our entire bridge inventory were we to expand the assessment. So thank you for that perspective.
I don't want to argue with you, but if somebody said that doesn't make it so.
And conversely, just because a ratepayer sends
Get it tested by its own. It is relative data because it's comparison to the information we have. If it comes back and it's consistent with the information we have from the recommendation, good, we validated it. If it's not consistent with the recommendation we got, well then we have another decision to make. Test more bridges or not, okay? But you just can't say, oh, wait, we got this recommendation and we have to follow it. No, we don't have to follow it. We can test it and verify it.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I sympathize for sure. But I feel like there's a plan. And so if we did test just one, and it would be just one, it's only 20,000. But what happens if it fails worse? So now we've got someone else who's going to be even more upset. But we've also, if it does pass and it's acceptable, a whole plan will go out, and then what bridge do you fix, what do you pick next? And I heard it takes 5 years to get them all tested. Or
That's the
And
regular
inspected, so.
Yeah.
it would, the whole plan just seemed for the next 5 years would be kind of taken out. I think it's not going to be beneficial. You can say it's just one, but I think it's going to end up being, if it's worse, but if it's better, it's still going to be a kind of total chaos. Anyway, that's my idea.
Any other questions or discussion?
I might add a couple supplemental points.
We'll go to Councillor Custer and then.
Say we test the bridge and it comes back and it says, ooh, we got to ban this one. We can't even use it anymore. It's going to collapse. Otherwise, we would have left it open for 5, 7, 8 years. But no, you got to close it. It's going to collapse. So we close it and it doesn't collapse. Maybe by testing it, we've saved somebody's life instead of by going by a recommendation.
We'll go to administration.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple points, I guess, just for clarity. If we were to move forward with, say, assessing the entire network, we probably couldn't do it all in a year just because of capacity of the engineering consultant. It's probably going to take a couple of years to complete for sure. Many of these bridges will be completely replaced by then. There's also weighing the value, I guess, in spending the money to assess it. And if it does come back, we don't have to restrict the B train class. And the bridge is up for replacement in 3 years anyway. I don't, people can use it for 3 years, yes, but it's still going to get replaced. So there's a cost benefit analysis there, right? If you're doing all bridges, some of them are up in 2 years, there's not a lot of point of testing those bridges, right? You'd probably want to test something that's got a little more life left in it, knowing that you're going to get some value out of upping that restriction if it does get lifted. Noting that too, it's not, I wouldn't call this a blanket restriction because we aren't restricting all 1960s concrete girder bridges. We are restricting ones that are below the 50% rating. So these are ones that have identified deterioration within the substructure, the superstructure that's beyond just repairing it and bringing up the current rating of the bridge and thereby lifting the restriction. We have been repairing bridges where we can to lift restrictions and prevent restrictions. Some of those examples would be where we had single lane closures and restrictions on bridges last year. And we did repairs to ensure that those bridges remained open for about 6 months longer. And then we restricted it down to 10 tons after a coring report was done and found that all the piles were rotted. So, I mean, we are trying to keep bridges open and unrestricted as much as we can and are making repairs where feasible. The problem where you run into is that if all the piles need to be replaced in order to bring up the restriction, you're now replacing the entire substructure. To do that, you have to remove the superstructure. You might as well spend the money to replace the superstructure. So it's a snowball effect, right? Where you're getting that cost benefit analysis again is, well, for replacing 50% of the structure, you might as well replace the whole structure because you're already there and you're already doing it. So those are all the things that kind of go into that weighted analysis, and is definitely tricky to navigate and to, go the right direction on. I would say that none of these bridges are at threat of collapse in any way, shape, or form. Just to be clear on that, they do have a reduced structural rating that is below an acceptable level, as they call it, which means you're under 50%. The ones that are at a 30%, so that's 30 to 40% or 3 rating, they are considered poor condition, which means you should be prioritizing repairs or replacement of those structures. Anything with a 2 rating is considered a hazardous condition, and we currently have 4 bridges in the county with that restriction on them. 3 of them have been reduced down to 10 ton because of that. And then one is we didn't restrict it only because it is being replaced in about 2 months here in October. So that's the only reason it hasn't been reduced. So it's definitely a balancing act, and yeah, we'll keep working on it and keep trying to keep everything as unrestricted as we can. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
So I'm going to support it just for the sake of a test scenario. Appreciate the sentiment around diverting funds away from our plan, and this in no way suggests that I don't appreciate and think that administration is doing the very best job they can with the plan coming forward.
Councillor Baker.
I'm going to, I'm not going to be in favor of this. I feel that I trust, I feel like we've got a good handle on, Cody's got a good handle on what's out there and he's seen. So I think if it's restricted, it's probably a good reason to be restricted. So I will not agree with the motion.
Opposed?
Opposed?
In favor. So now we're tied.
In favor.
That motion is tied, and so it's defeated.
Yeah.
The motion fails.
I'll move that the
That
council,
was recorded.
Yes, administration recorded the vote.
Thank you.
I'll move that the council accept the restricted bridge report as information.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
And that motion is carried. Does council feel like we could go through the 2 closed session agenda items, or do we need a break? We need a break. Okay. Do you want to break to 12:30, 12:45? When do people want to reconvene? How long does administration need? You're flexible?
When you're flexible.
And check. Okay, we'll reconvene at 12:30 and meeting is recessed. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. We will call the meeting back to order. We have finished all of our business for an open session, and we're going to move into closed session for 2 agenda items. I'll move that we move into closed and call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried. And we'll move into closed session. Good afternoon. Council has just moved out of closed session. We have motions arising, or a motion arising.
I'll move that council approves the extension of the closing date for the purchase and sales agreement for the lands within the Lakes of Muirfield community to November 21st, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
Favor.
In favor.
That motion is carried, and that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.